Well, we now continue to our weekly land report segment with the American Society of Farm Managers and Rural Appraisers. Tim Cobb is joining us now with some insight on succession and farm transitions. Tim, always a pleasure. So we're talking about types of succession transitions. What types should a farm operator expect to go through for the next generation?
Hi, Suzanne. Thanks so much for having us. You know, as we review transitions, specific transitions on the farms, there's really two that are most important. That's an operational management transition as well as an ownership transition. And those items don't normally happen at the same time. You know, when you talk about day-to-day operations, as young people are coming into an organization, they should get an opportunity to manage and do a few things that will allow them to make some choices. Will maybe control some budgets, or potentially also sell some grain and do things like that. You know, on the other side, there's that ownership transition that might come later, but it also might include other stakeholders. And so when you're talking about succession, there are lots and lots of things to consider. And ownership transition normally takes a little bit more time than our opportunity to get some on the farm day-to-day management transition.
Yeah, there's a lot more levels to this. I think maybe people that may not know so much about it, they think of ownership, right? But you mentioned there management. We're talking about livestock and feed and everything else that goes along with this. But we talk about ownership maybe, or maybe in general overall, how long should a successful farmland transition take to complete?
You know, that's a great question, Suzanne. When we get down to it, it really depends on the operation. It depends on the amount of communication, which is important. But really, the factors that play into it, can make it so a management transition can look like 3 to 5 years, and an ownership transition, honestly, depending on the equity and the amount and the size of the farms, it can take longer than that. You know, it is not unexpected for us to see something take between 5 and 8 years, and as we watch that, it's good to have that continuity. You get the relationships with the banker, you get the relationships with all of the other players that are involved in this, and that time is what's needed it's kind of a proving time, and so it can take up to those time frames.
Tim, you mentioned communication. Let's talk about the conversation that needs to take place when they're working through these details.
Yeah, you know, the conversation always. Communication is always the key, right? And we need to listen twice as much as we speak. If honestly, the old saying is that the good Lord wanted us to speak as much as we listen. He'd given us 2 mouths, right? But He gave us 2 ears instead, and so we listen as much as we can. But it's also important to say what needs to be said. To start early. I can remember early on in my own family, Dad would just start talking to me about a few things, and it would be consistent. And it was always consistent. And that's important, that the message that comes from those who would like to have succession happen, that it's as consistent as possible, and that it starts early, and that you include the players as often as you can.
Before I let you go, where can people turn to? They want more information. They need help with this.
You know, some of the trusted professionals obviously include accountants and attorneys, farmland appraisers, farm managers, these consultants that work every day with this succession is really important. But, the last thing I would say is it's very important that the farm operator brings their plan. Okay, we shouldn't go to these professionals expecting them to tailor and make the plan for us. You folks know what is best for your farm. You folks know what's best for your family. But then include some people who can help you do the legal items, as well as the tax implication items, as well as just the thoughtful consideration of what would be best for the farm long term.
Great information as always, Tim. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for helping us out with that. Tim Cobb with the American Society of Farm Managers and Rural Appraisers.